The top 11 most scandalous and shocking facts about Dean Acheson. Dean Acheson, who served as the U.S. Secretary of State from 1949 to 1953 under President Harry S. Truman, was a central figure in shaping American foreign policy during the early years of the Cold War. His tenure was marked by a series of controversial and often scandalous events that have left a lasting impact on history. Here, we delve into the 11 most scandalous and shocking facts about Dean Acheson. Fact number 1. A glimpse into Acheson's early life and personal background. Dean Acheson was born on April 11, 1893, in Middletown, Connecticut, into a prestigious family. His father, Edward Campion Acheson, was an Episcopal bishop, and his mother, Eleanor Gertrude Gooderham, hailed from a wealthy Canadian family. Acheson attended Groton School, an elite preparatory institution, and later graduated from Yale University in 1915. He then went on to study at Harvard Law School, where he was influenced by future Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter. Acheson's early life was marked by privilege and access to influential circles, which undoubtedly shaped his future career. Despite his aristocratic background, Acheson faced personal struggles, including a brief stint in the Navy during World War I, which he left due to health issues. He married Alice Caroline Stanley in 1917, and they had 3 children. His personal life was characterized by a strong commitment to family, yet he remained a complex figure, balancing his patrician upbringing with the demands and controversies of public service. Number 2. The China White Paper Controversy. In August 1949, Dean Acheson released the China White Paper, a 1,054-page document titled United States Relations with China, with special reference to the period 1944 to 1949. Aiming to explain U.S. actions in the communist takeover by Mao Zedong, the release coincided with the fall of Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist government. Critics accused Acheson of losing China to communism, sparking intense backlash. Politicians, including Senator Joseph McCarthy, used the controversy to fuel anti-communist sentiments and attack Acheson's policies. This incident significantly tarnished Acheson's reputation and contributed to the rise of McCarthyism. Number 3. The Korean War Misjudgment. On January 12, 1950, Dean Acheson delivered a speech at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., which outlined the U.S. defense perimeter in Asia. In this speech, Acheson explicitly excluded South Korea and Taiwan from the U.S. defensive line, focusing instead on Japan, the Philippines, and the Aleutian Islands. This omission was interpreted by North Korean leader Kim Il-sung as an indication that the U.S. would not defend South Korea in the event of an invasion. Consequently, on June 25, 1950, North Korean forces crossed the 38th parallel and invaded South Korea, triggering the Korean War. The invasion caught the U.S. and its allies off guard, leading to a rapid and desperate military response under the United Nations banner. Acheson faced severe criticism for his perceived blunder, with many accusing him of providing a green light for North Korean aggression. The war resulted in a devastating conflict with significant casualties, ultimately costing the lives of over 36,000 American soldiers and millions of Korean civilians. Number 4. Operation Ajax and the Iranian coup. In August 1953, Dean Acheson played a significant behind-the-scenes role in Operation Ajax, the CIA-led coup that overthrew Iran's Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. Mossadegh had nationalized the Iranian oil industry, leading to a standoff with the British-owned Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, AIOC. Unable to resolve the conflict diplomatically, the British sought U.S. assistance. Acheson supported the coup to maintain Western control over Iranian oil. The operation, executed with British intelligence, MI6, reinstated Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. The Shah's authoritarian rule, backed by the U.S., led to widespread repression and discontent, setting the stage for the 1979 Iranian Revolution. Acheson's involvement in this controversial operation remained largely undisclosed for years. Number 5. Support for colonial powers. Dean Acheson's foreign policy often supported colonial powers, which put him at odds with emerging independence movements. One notable example was his backing of French efforts to retain control over Indochina, which later became Vietnam. In 1946, following World War II, the French sought to reassert their colonial dominance over Indochina, leading to the First Indochina War against the Viet Minh, led by Ho Chi Minh. Despite growing anti-colonial sentiment and the brutal nature of the conflict, Acheson supported French military efforts by providing financial and military aid. This support included significant funding in military equipment through the Mutual Defense Assistance Act of 1949, amounting to over $3 billion by 1954. Acheson's backing of the French was driven by the broader context of containing communism, but it ultimately contributed to the prolonged conflict and set the stage for increased U.S. involvement in Vietnam. Critics argue that this decision ignored the aspirations of the Vietnamese people for independence and exacerbated regional instability. Number 6. The Alger Hiss Case. Dean Acheson's staunch defense of Alger Hiss, a former State Department official accused of being a Soviet spy, was one of the most controversial episodes of his career. Hiss was accused by Whittaker Chambers, a former communist, of passing classified documents to the Soviet Union in the 1930s. The case, which began in 1948, became a sensational trial that captivated the nation. In January 1950, Hiss was convicted of perjury, not espionage, due to the statute of limitations. Throughout the proceedings, Acheson publicly defended Hiss, famously stating, "I do not intend to turn my back on Alger Hiss." This statement, made on January 25, 1950, sparked a fierce backlash from anti-communist crusaders and made Acheson a prime target for Senator Joseph McCarthy and his allies. Acheson's unwavering support for Hiss during the height of the Red Scare contributed to the perception of him as soft on communism and further fueled the anti-communist hysteria of the era. Number 7. The Truman Doctrine and the Greek Civil War. Dean Acheson was instrumental in developing the Truman Doctrine, articulated by President Truman on March 12, 1947, to contain Soviet expansion. A key application was U.S. intervention in the Greek Civil War, 1946 to 1949, where the Greek government, backed by the U.S. and UK, fought communist insurgents supported by Yugoslavia, Albania, and Bulgaria. Acheson secured approximately $400 million in aid through the Greek-Turkish Aid Act, helping the Greek government defeat the insurgency by October 1949. While credited with preventing a communist takeover, this intervention was criticized for supporting a repressive regime responsible for mass arrests, executions, and displacing thousands of citizens. Number 8. The Marshall Plan implementation. Dean Acheson's implementation of the Marshall Plan, launched in April 1948, provided over $13 billion, approximately $160 billion in 2024 dollars, in economic aid to Western European countries. While celebrated for rebuilding Europe post-World War II, it faced criticism for favoring certain countries and businesses, leading to accusations of economic imperialism. Managing aid distribution posed significant challenges and sometimes exacerbated tensions with the Soviet Union, which viewed the plan as a tool for American influence. This perception led the USSR to tighten control over Eastern Europe, contributing to the Cold War's escalation and the division of Europe into rival ideological camps. Number 9. The Loyalty Program and Civil Liberties. During Acheson's tenure, the Truman administration instituted the Federal Employee Loyalty Program in March 1947 to root out communist influence. Intended to protect national security, the program led to widespread paranoia and infringed on civil liberties. Extensive background checks on millions of federal employees resulted in numerous loyalty boards and hearings. From 1947 to 1956, over 5 million federal employees were screened, with around 2,700 dismissed or resigning under charges of disloyalty. Acheson's support for the program has been criticized for contributing to the climate of fear known as the Second Red Scare, impacting civil liberties and due process rights. Number 10. The formation of NATO. Acheson was a principal architect of NATO, established on April 4, 1949. While now seen as a cornerstone of Western security, its creation was initially controversial. Many Americans were wary of entangling alliances, recalling post-World War I isolationism. There was significant debate over committing U.S. forces to defend Western Europe under Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, which declared that an attack against one member was an attack against all. Acheson advocated strongly for NATO, navigating substantial political opposition. He argued that a transatlantic alliance was essential to counter Soviet aggression and ensure collective security. The treaty, signed by 12 original members, marked a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy toward multilateralism and collective defense. Despite initial controversies, NATO has endured and expanded, playing a crucial role in global security. Number 11. The National Security Act of 1947. Dean Acheson played a crucial role in shaping the National Security Act of 1947, signed into law by President Truman on July 26, 1947. The act restructured the U.S. military and intelligence community, creating the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, the National Security Council, NSC, and the Department of Defense. It aimed to streamline national security efforts in the wake of World War II and the emerging Cold War. While these institutions became central to U.S. national security, their establishment also led to increased secrecy, covert operations, and abuses of power. Acheson's influence in crafting this legislation has left a complex legacy, balancing security needs with concerns over government overreach and ethical implications.